The devil's partner, Alex Rivera's face, was plastered across every screen at the police station. Wanted for fraud, embezzlement, and financial crimes that would land him in federal prison for 20 years. But the man sitting in the interrogation room knew the truth. He hadn't stolen a penny. Someone had stolen his life and handed it to him like a loaded gun. 13 hours earlier, rain hammered against the windows of his studio apartment. Alex sat hunched at his glass desk, the blue glow of two Dell monitors painting his face in shades of electric cyan. His right hand gripped a silver Logitech mouse, clicking with mechanical precision. Click, click, click. The rhythm was almost meditative, except for the bloodshot eyes tracking across the spreadsheets, the red highlighted rows that told a story Alex had only begun to understand. The coffee mug beside his keyboard had gone cold hours ago. Brown ring crusted at the bottom. He'd been staring at these numbers since midnight, cross-referencing transfers, chasing digital ghosts through their company's financial infrastructure. The rain drummed against the window pane like fingers demanding entry. He opened a folder labeled Phoenix Project, Secret. The name alone should have been a warning. Inside was a PDF titled Offshore Transfer Auth.pdf. His breathing had already shifted into something shallow and quick, but it accelerated further as he double-clicked the file. The computer's cooling fan whirred louder, as if sensing his panic. The document opened. White background, black text, professional formatting. A signature line split the authorization. On the right, authorized by Mark Vance. On the left, a forged signature. Alex Rivera. But wrong somehow. The R was missing its usual flourish, the line too steady, lacking the confident swoop that had been Alex's signature for 15 years. He leaned closer to the screen, his breath fogging the monitor. Below the names, scrolling down with trembling fingers on the mousepad, he found the amount $450,000. The destination account read Cayman Holdings Limited. The date made his vision blur. October 14th. The day Alex was burying his mother in a cemetery 40 miles outside the city. Thunder rolled in the distance, a sound like the world splitting open. The warehouse district at 2 in the morning was exactly the kind of place where bad things happened. Alex knew this as he slammed his car door, a 2018 black Jeep, practical and forgettable, and marched toward the corrugated metal building. Mark was waiting under a single yellow bulb that buzzed with electric anger. A cigarette dangled from his lips, the tip glowing orange in the fog. "I saw the Cayman transfer, Mark." Alex's voice shook, rage and disbelief tangled together. "October 14th. You signed my name while I was burying my mother." Mark took a long pull on the cigarette, then dropped it to the pavement. His polished brown leather boot came down on it slowly, deliberately. The cigarette crumpled with a soft crunch. He smiled. Not the warm smile Alex had known for 15 years. The smile that had convinced Alex to go into business with him in the first place. But something colder. Something that had always been there, waiting beneath the surface. "You were always too emotional for this business, Alex." Mark's voice was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing the weather. "You weren't using the money. I am." The words landed like a punch. Alex lunged forward, his right fist cocked and ready to connect with Mark's face. But movement exploded from the darkness to his left. A large man, massive shoulders, tactical gloves, the kind of professional violence that lived in his bearing, stepped out from behind a stack of wooden pallets and caught Alex's wrist mid-swing. The thug's grip was iron. Before Alex could even process what was happening, a knee drove up into his stomach with devastating force. The air left Alex's body. He doubled over, gasping, the world tilting. Sweat beads formed on his forehead despite the cold night air. His vision tunneled down to Mark's boots, still stationary on the concrete, smoke still rising from the crushed cigarette butt. The backhand came like a whip. The thug's gloved hand connected with Alex's face, spinning him sideways. The wet concrete rushed up to meet him. He hit it hard, felt the impact in his teeth, tasted blood. A small puddle of rainwater rippled as his body landed, the water disturbed by his fall. He lay there on his side, ear pressed against cold pavement. His vision blurred, but cleared enough to see Mark's boots walk past him. Walking away, finished with the conversation. A sleek black Mercedes SUV was pulling into the bay, its headlights glaring into the darkness like searchlights. Thug 1 stepped over Alex without a second glance, following Mark toward the vehicle. Alex's eyes refused to close, refused to look away. He watched as a tall man in a charcoal suit emerged from the driver's seat. The man's presence filled the space, not through physical size, but through an aura of controlled authority. He handed Mark a black leather briefcase. Mark opened it. Blue bands held stacks of $100 bills in place, hundreds of thousands of dollars arranged like ammunition in a magazine. The man in the suit looked directly at where Alex lay. For a moment, Alex's pain crystallized into something sharper. Recognition. The man's face belonged to someone from Alex's past. Someone from a chapter he thought he'd closed. He's still alive, Mark. The man's voice was smooth, terrifyingly calm. Clean up your mess, or I'll find a new partner. Alex's ex-fiance's father, Elias Thorne, the man who had supposedly disliked Mark, who Alex had believed stood with him against the world. The connection formed like a circuit completing. Mark hadn't been acting alone. None of this had been random. The door to his apartment was unlatched when Alex finally dragged himself there at 4 a.m. The frame was splintered, crowbar marks gouging the wood. He pushed inside, knowing before he fully crossed the threshold what he would find. His monitors were smashed. Both 27-inch Dells lay in pieces on the desk, LCD screens shattered like frosted glass. The hard drives were missing from their bays, empty rectangular voids where data had been seconds before it was erased. Papers were scattered across the floor like confetti after a celebration. Except this was a funeral. Glass crunched under his shoes as he moved through the wreckage. He walked toward the Golden Gate Bridge photograph on his wall. His hands shook as he pulled it aside, revealing the safe behind it. The door hung open. An empty gray metal mouth, agape and mocking. The deed to his family house, inherited just months ago, was gone. The emergency cash, $20,000 in hundreds, all gone. Every exit route sealed. His laptop was the only casualty they'd overlooked. It sat on the kitchen counter like a poisoned gift, and it beeped as he approached. A news notification blazed across the screen. Local tech entrepreneur Alex Rivera, wanted for fraud and embezzlement. His own headshot stared back at him from the news site, stamped with "Wanted" in bold red letters. It was the photo from their company website. Alex smiling, professional. The face of someone who had no idea his entire existence was being dismantled. The headline continued. Rivera, co-founder of Vance Rivera Technologies, allegedly transferred over $450,000 in company funds to offshore accounts without authorization. Police are seeking information regarding his current whereabouts. Current whereabouts. As if he were a ghost already. The subway station at 5:30 a.m. was nearly empty. A few early commuters shuffled through in their own private worlds, moving toward their own ordinary days. Alex pulled his hooded sweatshirt low, kept his head down, and tried to pass through the turnstiles like he belonged in this flow of people. He wasn't trying to attract attention. He was trying to become invisible. It didn't work. 2 officers stood near the ticket booth. one of them holding a digital tablet. Alex watched from his peripheral vision as their eyes dropped to the screen, then rose to find his face. A moment of recognition, a moment where the world shifted. The officer on the left shouted something Alex's mind didn't quite process. A radio crackled. The officer on the left reached out and grabbed Alex's shoulder with a hand that felt like a vice, like authority given physical form. Alex spun, using his momentum to shove the officer backward against the turnstile. Metal sang as the officer's back connected with it, the breath leaving his lungs in a surprised gasp. His hat tumbled to the ground. The radio on his belt squealed. The second officer came from Alex's right side, a tackle born of training and instinct. They both went down hard, Alex's back slamming against a tiled pillar. Pain exploded through his spine. He could feel the officer's hands reaching for the handcuffs on his belt, could feel the methodical efficiency of someone trained in restraint. Alex shoved his hands at the officer's face, pushing, clawing, desperate to keep those cuffs from closing around his wrists. Flesh against flesh. Boots scuffing concrete. Heavy grunts from both of them, primitive and raw. Above, blue and red reflections of sirens from the street filtered down into the station like a temporal warning of what was coming. Alex's boot found the officer's shin. He kicked hard, felt bone under his heel, heard the man's sharp intake of pain. Alex scrambled upward, his legs finding purchase on the concrete. He jumped over the gate, hands gripping the metal bar for just a moment before he released and moved forward, deeper into the darkness of the tunnel. The train was approaching. He could feel it through the air, through the vibration in his bones. The tunnel lights began to glow yellow in the distance. He ran toward it, toward the darkness, toward any exit that wasn't behind him. The hidden basement storage unit had been his one genuine precaution, taken years ago when paranoia was still just a hobby. Alex knelt in the dust of abandonment and pulled out an old PC tower, a machine so ancient and forgotten that no one would ever think to search it. His hands found the coin in his pocket, and he unscrewed the side panel with practiced efficiency. Dust motes danced in a single beam of light that filtered through a high window, and he pulled the small red USB drive from where it had been taped to the interior floor at 7 in the morning, when the city was still waking up. A burner laptop waited in the corner, the kind of machine that left no digital fingerprint. He plugged in the red drive. The file appeared. Contract Draft 2019. A video file. His hands steadied themselves on the keyboard as he clicked play. Grainy footage opened. It was from 3 years ago, though the date stamp confirmed it. The location was his mother's home office. He recognized the painting on the wall behind them, a landscape she'd loved. Mark stood on one side of her desk. His mother sat on the other, her face still wearing the confidence of someone in control of their own life. Mark was handing her a document. She took it, her reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. He watched his mother's lips move as she spoke, but the audio was barely audible. Then she signed something. And Mark looked directly at the camera with a smirk that Alex had somehow never noticed before. Not truly. A smirk that said everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The drive contained everything. The offshore account details, Mark's communications with Elias, the forged documents, the video from his mother's office. All of it would be sufficient. All of it would destroy them. 88%. A shadow fell across the monitor. Alex's breath caught. He didn't turn around immediately. He already knew who it would be. Mark sat down in the chair beside him, his movement casual, unhurried. He placed a small black device on the desk. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every Wi-Fi indicator on the library's computers flickered red. The progress bar on Alex's screen turned the color of blood. Upload failed. Mark didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He simply looked at Alex with an expression of polite amusement, as if watching a child attempt to solve an equation years beyond his comprehension. His navy suit was tailored perfectly. His hair was flawless. He looked like a man who had never known fear. "Come with me." Mark's voice was soft, conversational. "Or I'll have this library declared a crime scene. I have enough evidence to put you behind bars before the ambulances arrive." The rooftop of the library was accessed through a maintenance stairwell. Alex was given no choice in the matter. Thug 2, a different one than before, but cut from the same cloth, pushed him through the door and out onto the gravel and exposed HVAC units. The noonday sun was merciless, washing all color out of the scene, turning everything into shades of white and gray. Mark stood near the edge of the roof, his back turned to Alex, looking out over the city sprawl. Thug 2 twisted Alex's arms behind his back, holding him immobile. The grip was professional, nearly painless in its efficiency. But efficiency and restraint is just another form of torture. "Do you know what I think about when I think about you?" Mark's voice was calm. Contemplative, he didn't turn around. "I think about potential, the way you always had just enough of it to make things interesting, but never quite enough to actually succeed. Your mother saw it too, toward the end." Alex's vision narrowed. Everything else fell away. He thought of his mother's voice on the video. He thought of the smirk on Mark's face. He thought of the words that Mark was about to say, the words that would either destroy him or finally release him from the need to be careful. He threw his head backward, aiming for Thug 2's face. The back of his skull connected with the thug's nose. The sound of bone on bone echoed across the rooftop. Thug 2's grip loosened for just a moment, that one moment being the only window that mattered. Alex spun forward, driving his elbow backward into the thug's ribs. The air left the man's lungs. Alex followed with a punch aimed at the thug's throat, and Thug 2 collapsed backward, gagging, his hands moving to his neck as if he could somehow squeeze his own windpipe back into functioning order. Blood sprayed on the gray gravel. Mark pulled a collapsible baton from his jacket pocket. The metallic snap, as it extended into its full length, was almost musical. He moved toward Alex with the calm efficiency of someone who had done this before, maybe many times. The baton came around in a professional arc, aimed at Alex's ribs. It connected with a sound like a tree branch snapping. Pain exploded through Alex's torso. His knees buckled. He hit the gravel and stayed there, clutching his side, struggling to breathe through the agony. Mark stood over him, the baton's chrome finish reflecting the sun into Alex's eyes. For a moment, Alex thought this was the end. He waited for the killing blow. Instead, Mark was suddenly airborne. Alex's survival instinct had simply taken over where his conscious mind had surrendered. His hand had found a handful of gravel, and he had flung it upward with the last reserves of his strength. Most of it had missed, but enough had found Mark's eyes. Mark had screamed, actually screamed, and in that moment of blindness, Alex had tackled him like a man trying to dive through solid rock. They went down together, rolling toward the low parapet wall that marked the roof's edge. Dust rose around them. Alex's hands clawed. Mark's fists swung blindly. The world became nothing but motion and pain and the desperate animal knowledge that only one of them was walking away from this rooftop. Mark's hands closed around the baton, and he pressed it across Alex's throat like a barrier between this world and whatever came next. His eyes had cleared enough to see, to grin, to lean his weight forward. Alex's face was turning purple. He could feel the air pathways closing, could feel the bright sparks at the edges of his vision as his brain began its protest against oxygen deprivation. "You think I stole from her?" Mark's voice was a hiss of venom. "She gave it to me, Alex. She knew you were a failure. She wanted me to have the legacy." Alex's vision was fading. The edges of the world were going gray. Mark's hand moved to his jacket pocket. He pulled out a folded letter, waved it in front of Alex's dying eyes. It was in his mother's handwriting, the familiar slant and flow of her penmanship. "Take care of everything, Mark. Alex doesn't have the stomach for what's coming." The words were a knife. They twisted even as Alex's consciousness was being strangled away. His mother, choosing Mark over him, leaving him as the expendable piece in a game he hadn't known was being played. The gray was almost complete now, almost time to stop fighting. His right hand moved without any conscious decision from his brain. Muscle memory, presentation habit. The laser pointer, the heavy-duty one he'd used for business meetings 100 times, was still in his pocket. His fingers found it, pulled it out, aimed it. The green beam, bright and concentrated, hit Mark's clear eye directly. Mark screamed and jerked away, covering his face. The baton released from Alex's throat. Air flooded back in, harsh and burning, the most painful gift in the world. Alex didn't think. He rolled toward the edge and pulled himself over the parapet wall, landing hard on the iron fire escape on the other side. The metal clanged beneath him. He didn't stop to assess injuries or options. He just moved downward, his feet finding the steps, his hands gripping the rusted railings. The clanging of the fire escape echoed through the urban canyon as he descended. Each step a bell tolling his survival, the ground rushing up faster and faster. The world reorganizing itself around the simple fact that he was still alive. The police station lobby was bright and ordinary, and populated with the mundane business of law enforcement. Officers processed paperwork. Suspects sat handcuffed to chairs. The hum of computers provided a technological heartbeat to the whole operation. Alex walked up to the desk at 1:30 in the afternoon, covered in gravel dust and blood, and placed the red USB drive on the counter. He was calm now. The animal had retreated. What remained was simply a man doing what needed to be done. "I'm Alex Rivera." His voice was even, projected clearly enough that several officers looked up from their desks. "I'm here to report a murder. My own reputations and the people responsible for my mother's death." The desk sergeant's hand moved toward the phone. Officers stood up. Guns were unholstered, not pointed yet, just removed from their resting places, a precaution against the unknown. "The evidence is on this drive," Alex said, sliding it across the desk. "And this letter will be relevant." He placed his mother's note down carefully. "You'll want to contact the district attorney with this material before Mark Vance has a chance to flee." His hands rose slowly into the air. The officers surrounded him, and Alex didn't resist as they guided him to the ground, didn't tense as the metal cuffs closed around his wrists. Behind him, on the lobby television mounted on the wall, a news report broke across the screen. Breaking news. Businessman Mark Vance and Elias Thorne arrested in synchronized raid. Evidence suggests long-running conspiracy. Alex watched his former friend being led out in zip ties on that screen, watched Elias Thorne's professional composure finally cracking as cameras flashed around him. 3 months later, the cemetery at sunset was painted in golden hour light. Headstones cast long shadows across the grass. Alex stood before his mother's grave, the granite headstone reading simply, "Elena Rivera," and wore a gray suit that no longer felt like armor. He held the letter in his hands, the one Mark had mocked him with on the rooftop, the one that contained his mother's apparent betrayal. He turned it over, On the back, a message was revealed only under the UV flashlight he'd brought with him. Words written in invisible ink, glowing blue against the darkness of the paper. Alex, if Mark shows you this, it means he's already lost. The red drive is in the computer. Use it to be the man I raised. Forgive me for the trap. A single tear tracked down his cheek. He clicked off the flashlight. The message disappeared back into invisibility. He struck a match and held it to the paper. The letter caught fire, orange flames consuming the words, the parchment blackening and curling. Ash fell like snow onto the grass at the base of the headstone. He dropped the burnt remnants into the dirt and turned away from the grave. His footsteps echoed quietly across the cemetery as he walked, leaving the shadow of the headstone behind him, leaving the weight of every revelation and revelation's counter-revelation, leaving the ghost of the man who had arrived here 3 months earlier, burning in a police interrogation room.